Hi everybody, Michael Anderson with eTail Solutions. Thanks for joining me in what is now part 7 of our deep dive into distributed logistics for digital commerce. Today we're going to review distributed order management and a little bit about forecasting and planning as well. But please note, if this is the first time joining us, that we have covered a lot of foundational concepts in these previous sessions, many of which we are going to discuss here today or at least touch on. So I highly encourage you, if you haven't already watched these previous sessions, go back and watch them in order, as these concepts do kind of build on each other. And today's video will make a lot more sense in that context. But if you've been keeping up, let's dive in and talk about distributed order management. So over the last many weeks, we've been talking about the fact that distributed logistics really allows us to look at digital commerce a little bit differently. We can look at it now through the lens of what we call yield management. And yield management is effectively, it's basically trying to maximize profit and sales with what you have at your disposal, right? You've got certain assets, you've got them in certain locations. How do we maximize the profit that we can get out of this current situation? That's what yield management is. And as we look at distributed order management, or DOM as I would refer to it moving forward, DOM is what allows you to actually increase that yield or increase profit after the sale has already occurred. Okay, but before we dive into what DOM is, I want to just spend just a moment and talk about the difference between DOM and planning specifically as it relates to inventory placement. DOM is going to route orders to the most effective location, but that means that there has to be inventory there, right? Inventory gets there, of course, because of the planning process. So it's important to understand the difference between these two very discrete functions. They're very different, but very, very complementary. DOM deals with reality at an exact point in time, right? We've got an order, we got to do something with it, it's got to be fulfilled. It doesn't matter if there's a more ideal solution or ideal way to get it to the end consumer if there's no inventory in that ideal location, right? So DOM deals with reality versus the forecasting and planning and making decisions ahead of time in terms of how do I understand velocity and know what regional demand looks like and where should I put my inventory and which SKUs go where. All of that is a very different function. Now these work very, very well together, right? The more accurate you get as it relates to forecasting and planning, the better off your overall delivered cost is going to look, right? You're going to maximize your margin if you can do that better and better over time. But they're very different functions, very complementary, and I'll come back to this after we reviewed a little bit more of DOM to touch on the subject again. But first, let's take a look at what DOM actually is. So DOM, first of all, as effectively you might consider this a dynamic order routing tool set. DOM is aware, first of all of your different fulfillment options. It's aware of all inventory available for sale. It's a point in time routing tool. So as I mentioned, we have an order in hand, we have to do something with it. And it's really a profit maximizer, right? So it's the ability to increase that margin after the sale. So when we look at what it's able to do, it's dynamic order routing across suppliers, right? So you may have multiple suppliers. Maybe you've got some catalog overlap where you can order the same SKU from multiple suppliers. It's able to look across suppliers. It's able to look across fulfillment methods. So if we have it in-house, that might be a pick, pack, ship fulfillment method. If you're going to drop ship it, that might be a drop ship PO. If it's a cross dock, it's a cross dock PO. If you're using a 3PL, you might be sending a work order to do a shipment or a shipment order. So across all methods, it's also looking across all locations. So it's aware of where that inventory sits and what it's going to cost to fulfill from every single one of those locations, as well as down to the carriers and the service levels provided by those carriers, right? So all of those are different variables to take into consideration or be able to consider. And then it also looks at what is the cost of the product, the cost of fulfillment, what is the delivery timeline, as well as then what are the other business rules that I may want to enforce as it relates to making these routing decisions. Sometimes it's not just the lowest cost. Maybe you've got a preferred supplier that's going to give you a rebate after the fact, and so you want to send all of your orders through them, even if they're slightly more expensive. There are things like that come into play, things like ship complete versus ship one item at a time as they're available, right? Those are all different rules that could be taken into consideration with DOM. Let's take a look though at what basic logic would really look like. Now, I want you to understand this can get fairly advanced and it can get very, very detailed, and you can even do custom rules and things like that as it relates to DOM. We're going to walk through what the basic flow kind of looks like just so you can kind of understand the movement. So the first thing is assume we have an order, right? And that order could have come from any channel, right? That's kind of the beauty of this, is that all channels and all orders kind of come into a single system. Doesn't matter where it came from. We do need to know the shipping methods as it came in and what the requirements are in terms of when this has to be delivered by, but that can come from any channel. So the first thing that DOM is going to do is it's going to look across this network of supply that we've reviewed in prior videos, and it's going to say, where is inventory right now? Again, to my earlier point, it doesn't matter if there's a more ideal scenario in theory. Right now, this order has to be fulfilled. So it's going to look at where is inventory. And then within that, what are the possible solutions for us to be able to fulfill that order? And that means that could be every single variation or permutation of how that order could be fulfilled, right? So what are the solutions? Let's just call them solutions for now. All of the variable options of how we could fulfill this order across all of those variables I already mentioned. And then once we understand what all the options are based upon where inventory is, all of the fulfillment methods, the carriers, the services, and so forth, we have to look at what are the costs. So now we know the possible solutions. Let's start digging into what the costs are. So that's across, as I mentioned, the fulfillment methods, across the carriers, across the carrier service levels. This is effectively rate shopping from every possible point of distribution within your supply network that you have configured as being available to fulfill these orders. Then it's going to look at what's the best solution. So once we do all of that rate shopping, then it's a matter of what is the best solution based upon, usually it's going to be lowest cost. That also meets the delivery timeline, but there are other variables in here like, do we have custom business rules? Do we have tiers of suppliers? Do I always want to fulfill out of my warehouse first before I try and drop ship it? There's a lot of variables that can come into consideration. I would say 90+% of the time that we see it anyway, it's usually going to be the lowest cost delivered within the timeline that's required because we want to maximize that profit margin. And then once that solution is found, now it's just a matter of automating the rest of that order fulfillment. So might be an EDI order out to a dropship supplier, could be EDI to a WMS that is being run by a 3PL. Could be pushing it through an ERP system, could be printing a pick ticket, could be, right? There's a lot of different workflow that comes into consideration. The point is once you know what that solution is, how do you automate that next step? Okay? So I want to come back to the concept that we talked about before around planning. And even though we haven't covered that specifically in a video, and who knows, maybe I'll do that in a future session, I want you to understand that the concepts that we cover in this series, if implemented, will provide you with a tremendous amount of data and insight as it relates to understanding how to make better decisions around forecasting and inventory planning. And that includes the true velocity of these items and the SKUs and the base unit of measure across your entire digital sales footprint. It includes understanding regional demand. It includes what is the timing? When do I need to purchase based upon the true velocity across these channels? It'll allow you to reduce your overall stock levels because you can make decisions based upon really understanding that velocity, which can be updated daily. So you can understand how much time do I need to replenish as opposed to sitting on traditional min-max stock levels. That allows you to get higher inventory turns. That's going to get you better GMROI on your individual items as you're selling, and it's going to really supercharge your cash flow as well. So that's what I wanted to cover here today with distributed order management. Next week, we are going to be talking about actual examples of how organizations are utilizing this technology. So it should be a fairly fun session this next time. Hope you enjoyed today, and we'll talk to you soon.